What a powerful way to kick off the conversation. Take a seat at the table. And so why don't I start off by just asking each of you to do a quick introduction, and then we'll kick off with some questions.
You need to start first? Okay. Well, I already mentioned that I'm Julia Gouw, and I grew up in Indonesia. I came here in 1978, and I have been living in LA, since 1981. I was previously a former, banking executive, president CEO of East West Bank. I retired in 2016, and since then, I devote most of my time on corporate board, nonprofit board, and I'm also a commissioner of the Ontario Airport. So I'm very, very passionate, which, I'll talk a little bit more later, is that to empower other Asian women so that they have a greater opportunity than our generation have had.
Good afternoon. I'm Chun-Yen Chen, the Executive Director of the Asian Pacific Community Fund. Different from Julia, actually, I grew up in Taiwan. We are similar in the background, come to the United States for education. I came here for my graduate school for a master's degree and PhD in public policy. I went to New York directly. I choose not to come to California because people say, if you come to California, I got accepted by USC, but they say I won't improve my English because too many Asians here. So my professor in Taiwan told me to go to New York. So I went to New York, and very fortunately, with my background in public policy, I very soon be recruited by governor of New York. So I work in the budget office, working on billion dollar, the rounding error was $1 million on the budget. But when I came to the United States, I didn't know I'm going to become American citizen, and the life take a different corner, so I came to California because my husband's here. I think long story short is that this past 22 years, I have been a nonprofit executive director, helping women, domestic violence shelter, and helping a lot of women initiative. So when I joined APCF, is my deeply I want to create next generation for my daughter, for many of the girls who has a future, they can see the role model in whatever they can become. Not like when I grew up, my parents had different expectations for women. So in the United States, I feel like this is an opportunity. If I can make a difference, I want to create a platform for next generation. So it's very honored today to sit next to Julia because our journey will share more how we start. I really think that nonprofit platform it's difficult, but we can be better if we have a philanthropy supporting our nonprofit work to make a change. Together, we can be better. So I think this is the main reason why I devote my life for nonprofit now, and I really think this is the opportunity to invite all of you to join us. Hopefully, when we finish the panel, all of you want to join us to sign up for Women Leadership Fund. So I'm going to pass on to John. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, Katie, thank you very much for your leadership and for the Asia Society for hosting this, and to Janet for your inspiration of awe. I'm here in part because my mom gave me this valuable lesson. She used to nag the four of us, her kids. She said, pick great friends, right? They will change the trajectory of your life. So I have two great friends up here, right? Julia and Chun-Yen, and so I am incredibly blessed. Then I sort of take this opportunity and others. My favorite person in the world is no longer with us. She's been gone for a long time, but it was my sister. My mom named her kids JR, John, Robert, Joyce, and Roger. My sister was 8 years younger, and my baby brother was 10 years younger. And we thought they were a nuisance way back when because we had to drag them to everything we went to, right? And when they're younger and you're carrying a little baby brother and sister, it wasn't that much fun. But my sister grew up into this beautiful, passionate woman who wanted to change the world. I'm the oldest child of immigrant parents who came to this country with not much from Taiwan. My dad, three shirts, 2 pairs of pants, learned his 5th language to get his PhD. And my mom scrubbing floors in South Dakota. She hates when I mention it. But it's like, Mom, you overcame a lot, right, to try to raise our family. And so I was incredibly proud when I got elected to my first office. It's like, okay, Mom, all the sacrifices that you went through, at least you provided your child the opportunity to hold one of the 12 highest offices in California. But I raised that point because my sister was kidnapped later that week and then she was murdered. And so My sister otherwise would have been here probably, right, because she would have done great things. So I just want to pay tribute to my sister and other great women who are trying to transform, families and opportunities in the future.
So we have such a great group of people here, and we're going to jump into one of our first questions. And so many of you in your respective industries and fields understand that there are many challenges facing women who want to raise funds, whether for their initiatives, nonprofit, for-profit. What are some of the challenges you foresee ahead of us, and do you believe that they can be overcome, and how?
The last few years, I've been very, very passionate, to support the Asian American women, partly because, all the statistics that I read is that Asian women actually are not doing that well in America. Contrary to what people believe, Asians are model minority, they don't need any help. But if you look at the statistics, Asian women are really lagging behind many other groups. A good example is that I just saw the statistics of, put by California Competes that have, a lot of different statistics, including the income level in California and by different region. But across the board, it really shows that Asian women earn only 80 cents of Asian men. Asian men and white men are somewhat similar, maybe a little bit more, but Asian women actually not doing too well, and nobody talked about it. And if you look at the statistics of Asian women in the leadership, C-suite, corporate boards, it's also not a very good statistics. So I really think that, the last few years, for example, on the corporate boards, which, John Chiang has been a very great supporter for the California law that requires to have women on corporate boards in California. And even though the law got overturned recently, but so many years have gone by that most companies now do not really, have all male white men corporate boards, on their boards. And in addition, even NASDAQ, although it's not required by law, actually put in place the rules that, they would not take any company public unless there's at least one female on the board, which is really good because not too long ago, most corporate boards do not have any women on the board. But, as you can see on the statistics, that what this made me the most is that, as expected, white women, got a lot of the increase in corporate boards, but there are 3 times more black women than Asian women on corporate board, Fortune 500. So, that really shows that while many of the other groups have really improved their leadership and, at corporate boards, Asian women have, stayed the same with less and less contributions at the leadership level. And if you looked at, the affinity groups, most of the big companies do have affinity groups. And unfortunately, the groups that are women groups in general also do not allow the Asian women voices in the group because it would be overwhelmed by, other women. And, if you're talking about Asian group affinity, it probably got dominated by Asian men compared to Asian women. And that's the reason why I'm really, truly grateful for, Katie and Janet to have this initiative, for Asian Women Empowered, because if we focus, on Asian women, we would allow, the Asian women to participate, to have their voices heard. And that's also the reason why, I'm so appreciative of Chun-Yen that, under the APCF, created this Women Leadership in Philanthropy Fund by Asian women. Because the whole idea is that we need, for all of us here that are fortunate enough to be able to give back to the Asian women community, to help the next gen especially, so that they will have more opportunity and parity of opportunities compared to what we had or our previous, a generation had. And so I really hope that we all can continue to work together collaboratively to support the Asian women. Because, I look at this, in terms of the initiatives of certain targets, is really interesting because there's this, like 50-50 women on board group that were spearheading to have women on corporate boards. It used to be called 2020 because they wanted 20% female representation on corporate board by 2020, and they exceeded that. So now they're on 50-50 women on board, which, they want to have 50% of board comprised of women. And then, Ascend, had a new initiative to also try to increase the Asian representation in corporate boards, because the statistics, that they show is that right now only 6% of Asian are represented in Fortune 1000 corporate boards, and what they want to do is that, to increase it to 10% by 2025. So they call it 10 by 2025 initiatives, which is really great. But where's the initiative to get a certain target for Asian women on corporate boards or other type of leadership? We don't have that. So that's the reason why, I would encourage that we all, collaborate and support each other and lift up the whole, community, and also, grow the pie of prosperity for Asian women.
Actually, this is a really great segue because, so much of the mission of what Chun-Yen, is spearheading and leading through the organization touches on this. And so I just want to dive into that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the mission and vision of AWLPF and APCF and why it matters so much.
I think as we all do philanthropy, as a nonprofit fundraising, all the time, you go to the corporate, ask for sponsorship, ask for money, right? So I've been in the nonprofit for 22 years. I hate to admit I'm old now. Yes. So when we do the fundraising, all the time, you are asking the corporate executive to make a decision to give you money. But as this past couple of years, you probably noticed that there's a lot of female philanthropy come out from the mainstream. Melinda Gates, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, McKinsey Scott. So APCA was very fortunate during the pandemic time, even though it's a very crisis moment for anti-Asian hate. Also, there's so many philanthropy feel they need to step up to support our community, particularly Asian to support Asian. But in the meantime, I got a call from McKinsey Scott's team. So last year, they didn't tell me they are from McKinsey Scott's team. They just told me that we have a anonymous donor is considering supporting Asian community. Can I talk to you? So I talked to them. By the time they call me, say, Chun-Yen, I have a multi-million-dollar for you from McKinsey Scott, I scream on the phone, okay? So I even tried to think, is that a spam call? But the most importantly, I think, one thing I want to share that call actually generated a great passion. Because when McKinsey Scott's team talked to me, they are talking about what do you think the most important thing for API community, just like Julia mentioned. I really think that people shouldn't wait until you are multi-million to give. You can always give. I think one bad thing about United States culture is that when you are little, they start asking you to give back to school. Girl Scout, Boy Scout, cookie, helping neighbor, volunteer. That's something that I don't have when I grew up in Taiwan. That's just not the culture my parent or the school, the country has. Very different system. So even I was relearned as a parent, went through PTA to understand why do we need to raise money for a teacher to buy supply. Even for me, I need to be self-educated. So I really realized that philanthropy needs to start from educating, cultivating them more. The mission of the Asian Pacific Community Fund back in 1990, that's how we founded 32 years ago, we were just thinking about to be an Asian version of United Way. Because at that time, United Way didn't have any Asian nonprofit in their affiliate member to give money to Asian. So you have payroll deduction as an employee Asian. You go to United Way, they will charge you extra because you want to give to the nonprofit who are not part of the network. They still pass on the money, but because Asian was not part of the network, they get extra admission charge to pass on to the API nonprofit. That was what happened in 1985. So in Los Angeles area, we got together 12 of the API nonprofit, including Chinatown Service and the Little Toyota, all of them together, we created Asian Pacific Community Fund, an Asian version of United Way in 1990. At that time, we were only thinking about payroll deduction, $1 per paycheck. So you think about that, we already talk about philanthropy giving, right? We are educating people. You can give, even you are an employee, your paycheck, $1. If together, 3,000 people, that's $3,000, right? So those are the concepts was part of the mission of APCF. But now in this year, 2020, Anti-Asian Hate, and I got this Mackenzie Scott's funding, they asked us how I'm going to use this money. I want to use this money to cultivate another woman philanthropy within our own. So I talked to Julia. I said, Julia, you're always so philanthropic, but I want people to have a role model like you and to learn how to become like you. So I invite her to start this Women Leadership in Philanthropy Fund. It was just announced last June, 2021, during the pandemic time. But I am very proud to say our goal is to invite each woman annually give $10,000 annually. And if we one day reach 100 women, that means $1 million annual giving every year. So our concept is to come, give, learn the project, and every year we're going to present the Asian Woman Girl Project for you to choose your fund to designate to. And the Asian Pacific Community Fund will put all the operation for free because that's the investment Mackenzie Scott money I can cultivate for next generation of our own. Maybe not people feel like, oh, I'm not Mackenzie Scott yet because I don't make that much money. But the whole point is that you can always give in any level of your life, in different level. So today I have to particularly recognize all the women who actually already joined our Women Leadership Fund. Can you please stand up? I know many of you are here. Please stand up. You gave us $10,000 annually. You are part of this shaker and movement. And I really honor for them to say yes when we invite them, and Claudia particularly, thank you so much. And I do want to say that, okay, just like Julia mentioned about, together, collaborative, we can make a bigger impact. So in first year, we already got 20 women. We gave out $200,000. And now we already have 4 new members join. By the end of June next year, we hope to have 40 members, will be 400,000. If I can reach 100, it will be 1 million. But most importantly, a lot of philanthropy, many times, we kind of silent next to our spouse, and or be as a family giving, be a corporate giving. And when you look at the philanthropy record, we couldn't find enough Asian women being documented and recognized. So I told Julia, I'm so glad she chose not to be low profile. I need somebody to be high profile, willing to take on the leadership, to be chair of our Women Leadership Philanthropy Fund. So once again, I really think this is the concept together. We are trying to change the next generation. We want our kids to look up to us saying, yes, I want to be like that. I want to have an opportunity and do something that I feel as a woman we feel passionate about with differently. And women give differently too. If you look at the philanthropy, women is more in the trust-based philanthropy. We see it, we want to make it happen, we want to continue to cultivate. So we're going to be a multi-year giving too. So once again, I really think that we need to work together. We cannot do alone. Of course, we love that everybody can be Mackenzie Scott, Julia Gouw, $1 million here, but not everybody ready. But start from here. You can start making together, and we can make the impact together. We can change the society by doing a little step.
A huge shout out and thank you to everyone who has contributed to that, because it is very inspiring. As we think about the trends and observations and a lot of the data, you know, Julia mentioned it, a lot of it doesn't reflect the world that we want to see and we want to live in. And so what are insights from all of you in a world where women are empowered to be those leadership positions, to drive forward the organizations that we care about? What would that world look like?
I actually want John to say it.
Well, I think the world would be better. Let me just start off again with my mom. So my mom is devoutly Catholic. Now that her cancer's in remission, she's back to going to church on a daily basis, praying for our world's soul. And so she started off actually early. We were the first Asian family in our community in suburban Chicago. So I was born in 1962, so much older than Chun-Yen. So the census 2 years prior to my birth was Asian Americans in the United States were 0.2% of the population. So incredibly rare. But my mom did this, so every other week we go to Chinatown so that she can have access to Chinese food. But then every other week, we would volunteer at a place where nuns would volunteer to help the developmentally disabled. And so what Julia and Chun-Yen and leaders like Claudia and others are, you're showing a model for your kids and future generations what our humanity and what philanthropy should look like, right? And it's absolutely critical because I operated for 20 years in public office, right? And so politics today is about the pure exercise, unfortunately, the pure exercise of power, not necessarily for good. And what really motivated me to get into public service is I used to watch all the discrimination our family faced, but I just thought it was horrible how my dad and mom, who are just really good, decent people, were treated as second-class or third-class citizens. And as Julia mentioned, Asian women on corporate boards are being paid. We're still being treated like second or third-class citizens. And I just wanted to make sure that even people who are well-intentioned, if you follow their models, we're still left behind. So my good friend Peter Wong just texted me this morning, my goddaughter, I have 9 godchildren, she just finished 27th in the Hawaii State cross-country race this weekend. But Peter used to work for President Clinton in the White House Council of Economic Advisors. And they're going over what they're going to do federal spending on. And Peter goes, after listening to all this stuff, what about Asian health? What about putting money into Asian health? And they said, oh yeah, that's a good idea, right? It's amazing when you don't have Asians around, they don't think about it, and you finally get one and then they think about it. And they said, Peter, get us this community studies. What are the health impacts, right? And that's the chicken and the egg problem because Peter started reaching out and we hadn't done health studies. This is how we also operate behind because other communities will get the government to pay for the healthcare studies. Oftentimes, we have to put up our own money, right? So we have to do it. That's why Julia's leadership putting up money, the incredible women here who are putting up money, women operate differently than men. Women operate in a collaborative fashion, right? There's oftentimes a giving circle. People are talking to each other, figuring out what the priorities are. You have a holistic more perspective. It's like, what about education for our kids? What about healthcare for our family? What about economic ladder for all? And that's why I said it would be transformative. And so that if we want to change that future. And so that's why this philanthropic fund is so absolutely critical, right? And then we have to have outcomes. I had the great pleasure during my public service of working with Kevin Clouden over at the Milken Institute. They do incredible research. And Kevin, I was just talking about, they have a philanthropic arm that tries to work with philanthropies to make sure that they're high performing. So I would encourage all of you to, first of all, participate with the fund, but also to introduce yourself to Kevin if you want to make sure that those community activities are operating at a high level. And Kevin, I hope you will do it as you did for the state of California for free. Right, I think these are the steps that we really need to focus on. We have just way too much talent. Congratulations to the honorees, but you think of people who've achieved high and mighty so far, like Adele and Janet and Sophia, who works for some of these people in the field. So let's make sure that our promise going forward overcomes the struggles that we had to overcome in the past.
I'll chime in. I really do believe that the world will be better if everybody has equal opportunity and not being discriminated or be treated as second-class citizen. It should be based upon, equal opportunity in everything and equal rights, right? Nobody should be, having less rights than other people. So, one of the things that I encourage everybody to participate in the fund is that, instead of creating a new program, Chun-Yen with the APCF working with many of the nonprofits, we select funds that already have programs to benefit Asian women. Because what we don't want is to spend a lot of time and effort soliciting for grants, asking for reports and all that stuff, because all that, add the cost to, to the program that end up with, the people getting less than what they could get if they just use it to fund the programs that really impact Asian women. So I really hope that more women will participate, and we should really make the pie bigger, because Asian women, a lot of time do not, even for me, like Chun-Yen said, I didn't grow up knowing about philanthropy or giving back, in the Asian, especially as an immigrant, you pretty much just work hard and keep the money for yourself and, take care of yourself or relatives or family. But, I really think that together, we can contribute, we can give back, so that the next generation and the other women that are not as fortunate as us can benefit, for having more opportunities. So I really believe in, everybody just pitching in whatever that you can. Like Chun-Yen said, it doesn't have to be, you have to wait until you have so much money to be able to give. You give whatever that you feel comfortable giving. But the whole idea is the more number of people that give, the more that the benefits will go to the community.
And with that, I want to thank our wonderful panelists for joining us today, and thank you to all of you. And please support Chun-Yen and this collective fund.
I want to say thank you for Katie and Jeanette and for this initiative, because it was just a year ago. We were in a lunch together, Claudia, Julia, me, and Jeanette. We were talking about how we can put a woman together. And that time, I was in the initiative, and we are initiative, and we find the best partnership together. It's just 1 year ago. Today, we have already achieved so much. Woman is a doer. Am I right? Within 1 year, so many things has accomplished, and we cannot do it without philanthropy, and we cannot do it without politicians support us and public service. But thanks again for joining us today. I really appreciate Katie for giving us the platform and joining us, and we'll talk to you more after the lunch.